Example Group Fitness Instructor Test Questions. This module contains professionally written multiple-choice review questions with detailed, helpful explanations. Learn at your own pace in study mode, or give yourself a timed quiz in test mode. Question 1. The Group Fitness Instructor, GFI, must be prepared for many contingencies during class. Which are the following is least likely to be a certification or training required by the GFI? A. First aid. B. Automated external defibrillator, IED. C. Lifeguarding. D. Cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR. Answer: C. Although many more instructors now teach in the aquatic setting than ever before, the instructor should never be responsible for lifeguarding as well as teaching the class. It is impossible to properly scan and respond to emergency situations in the pool setting when attending to a class. Instead, most GFs are responsible for seeking and maintaining their first aid and CPR training, which typically includes a module on using automated external defibrillators, IEDs. Question 2. A fitness participant is injured during group class. Which type of coverage would protect the instructor in the event of a legal suit by the participant? A. Premises liability insurance. B. Health insurance. C. Professional liability insurance. D. Workers' compensation. Answer: C. Professional liability insurance would provide coverage for the instructor in the event a class member is injured and seeks damages. Similar to malpractice insurance, professional liability insurance addresses any injury that occurs as a result of the instructor's directions or demonstrations. In contrast, premises liability insurance protects the facility in the event that someone is injured while on site, say by slipping on the deck of the pool. Workers' compensation provides coverage for the instructor, not the client, in the event the instructor is injured during work hours. Question 3. In a society overburdened by regulation, a common complaint is that certification and licensure standards are erected by professionals in order to restrict others from entering the workforce as competitors. This is not supposed to be so. Instead, which of the following best expresses the primary purpose of certification and licensure regulations? A. Protection of the government from liability. B. Protection of the public from harm. C. Standardization of threshold to enter requirements for the industry. D. Standardization of educational standards. Answer: B. The primary purpose of certification and licensure regulations is to protect the public from the harm that may arise from an incompetent or substandard professional working in the field. Such standards attempt to do this by regulating the thresholds to enter a profession. Some of the more common requirements include a standardized level of formal education, certification, testing and on-the-job training of skills. Question 4. Group fitness instructors work on a day-to-day basis with apparently healthy clients. As such, their work should be limited by their education, training, and state laws. A term used to define the roles of different players in the health and fitness continuum is A. Scope of practice. B. Certification. C. Continuum of care. D. Competency. Answer: A. Group fitness instructors, GFI, must work within their scope of practice, a term that takes into account legal statutes, certification parameters and education. Because the GFI is not licensed to practice health care, it is a essential that he or she does not exceed the parameters of fitness instruction. However, there is a wide variation in competence among instructors, an issue often addressed through certifications like those offered by the American Council on Exercise, ACE. Question 5. The ACE Group Fitness Instructor certification is designed to test the competence of individuals to do which of the following? A. Treat clients in a medical fitness or aftercare setting. B. Work with clients as an athletic trainer in a one-to-one relationship. C. Work with clients as a personal trainer in a one-to-one relationship. D. Work as instructors performing exercise leadership in a group setting. Answer: D. Group fitness instructors, GFI, perform exercise leadership in a group setting. They work with apparently healthy individuals and perform corporate instruction, not individualized training. As part of the certification process, the applicant is tested on his or her capacity to make sound decisions about reducing risk and exposure to harm while maximizing the effectiveness of instruction. Question 6. Which of the following is least likely to be part of the scope of practice of the group fitness instructor? A. Preparing for emergency situations and providing proper response to such situations. B. Assessing class atmosphere for unsafe environmental elements, such as faulty equipment. C. Assisting class members in setting and achieving realistic goals. D. Performing screenings for disease and injury. Answer: D. Group fitness instructors, GFI, have an extensive scope of practice related to education, instruction, motivation, recognition, prevention and other elements. However, the GFI is not qualified to screen for disease or injury. A good way to visualize the distinction is the following: a GFI will notice a damaged aerobic step in the room and remove it before a class member gets injured. In contrast, a physical therapist or athletic trainer will treat the torn lateral collateral ligament that results from the GFI failing to do his or her job. Question 7. The American Council on Exercise, ACE, has received third-party accreditation from which of the following prestigious parties? A. National Organization for Fitness Assurance, NOFA. B. National Commission for Certifying Agencies, NCCA. C. International Fitness Professionals Association, IFPA. D. International Sports Sciences Association, ISSA. Answer: B. The American Council on Exercise has received accreditation from the National Commission for Certifying Agencies, NCCA, providing a benchmark on how the certification should be organized and administered. The public has access to over 300 fitness certification programs. There is a need to distinguish between the competent fitness professional and the individual with an internet-generated certificate, and NCCA accreditation provides that benchmark for a CE. Question 8. You can never be too rich, too famous or have too much insurance. Unfortunately, in today's litigious society, it's not just the medical practitioner who has to be protected by many kinds of insurance. One of the policies that may come into play is an umbrella liability policy. Which of the following is the best description of the coverage provided by this kind of insurance? A. Negligence on the part of the instructor. B. Slip and fall injury suffered by the class member. C. Income protection for the instructor during times of disability. D. Supplemental or additional coverage added onto other kinds of policies. Answer: D. An umbrella liability policy is a supplemental policy, typically tacked onto another existing policy. For instance, an umbrella policy can provide additional coverage for a facility if their general liability coverage is inadequate for a major medical event, like a spinal cord injury. The term umbrella is used because the policy does just that. It provides an overarching protection of all the policies underneath. Question 9. Chuck John works as a full-time employee at Feel So Good Health Club. He runs the aquatics program and occasionally gets called into the rotation as an aquatic aerobics instructor. On Tuesday, he is injured performing a deck-based butt kicker demo. Which insurance is most likely to be called on to pay for his medical treatment? A. Individual medical or health insurance. B. Workers' compensation. C. Professional liability insurance. D. Disability insurance. Answer: B. If Chuck John is a full-time employee, he is likely to be covered under the facility's worker compensation policy, which should activate immediately as the primary means of paying for medical expenses. The chief distinction between workers' compensation and disability insurance, DI, is that DI pays a benefit when an injury or illness is not work-related. It is also important to note that when a person is injured on the job, his or her individual health insurance will not typically be called upon to cover medical expenses. Question 10. Delilah teaches an advanced yoga class twice a week at the local gym as an independent contractor. In the parking lot, she runs into one of her former group class members, Tina, and suggests that they go inside to catch up. On the way inside, Tina member trips on an ill-placed energy bar and falls and breaks a hip. What is most likely to be Delilah's legal dilemma? A. Delilah may not be covered under the facility's general liability policy. B. Tina may sue her for malpractice. C. Tina may claim benefits under Delilah's workers' compensation policy. D. Tina may claim benefits under Delilah's disability insurance. Answer: A. As an independent contractor, Delilah may not be covered under the gym's general liability policy, which covers incidences like slips and falls. Most are not. Many contractors choose to carry their own general liability insurance or to secure an umbrella policy to protect in case of a similar scenario. Such policies can cost as little as $10 per month and may provide peace of mind for the instructor. Question 11. Mr. Fibrillation collapses during your vigorous breakfast club workout. Upon inspecting him, you realize his heart is not beating. You realize that the automated external defibrillator, AED, will be a crucial part of the CPR action plan. List the strongest reason that the AED will play such an important role in the next 5 minutes of his life. A. CPR is worthless if an AED is not used. B. Without defibrillation, his chance of survival will drop every minute. C. An AED will restore his breathing cycle. D. An AED can perform all functions of CPR without external assist. Answer: B. In adults, use of an AED improves the success of resuscitation dramatically. However, CPR is not worthless without the device. For every minute that the heart rhythm is not restored through defibrillation, the patient's chances of survival decrease by 7 to 10%. For this reason, adult CPR procedures have been modified in order to activate the EMS early if an AED is not available. In children, it is relatively rare for the heart to be the source problem and defibrillation is not as critical. Question 12. Facilities looking to offer a full spectrum of classes to their members should look to a CE's Integrated Fitness Training (IFT) model. Which of the following is the most accurate depiction of the progression shown in the functional movement and resistance training element of the IFT model? A. Stability and mobility training into movement training into load training into performance training. B. Movement training into stability and mobility training into load training into performance training. C. Load training into stability and mobility training into movement training into performance training. D. Stability and mobility training into load training into movement training into performance training. Answer: A. There are two training components that comprise the CEIFT model: cardiorespiratory training and functional movement and resistance training. The functional movement and resistance training element of the IFT progresses as follows: stability and mobility training into movement training into load training into performance training. The CEIFT model provides instructors with a comprehensive approach to exercise programming that integrates programming to facilitate behavior change, while also improving posture, functional movement, cardiorespiratory fitness and muscular endurance and/or strength. Question 13. Group fitness instructors who integrate a CE's Integrated Fitness Training (IFT) model will notice that there is no specific mention of flexibility training in the model. Instead, there are two training components that comprise the CEIFT model: cardiorespiratory training and functional movement and resistance training. Which of the following is the most accurate explanation of why flexibility is not included in this model? A. Flexibility training takes place in an earlier phase of training. B. Flexibility training is integrated into all exercises instead of talking about it as a solitary component. C. Research has shown that flexibility can be assumed if participants can perform the other elements of the model. D. Flexibility exercises are no longer considered a base element of fitness training. Answer: B. According to a CE, the IFT model looks at the interaction between flexibility, core strength, postural stability and resistance training instead of talking about flexibility as a solitary component. In addition to flexibility, the Integrated Fitness model provides group fitness instructors, GFIs, with a comprehensive approach to address posture, functional movement, cardiorespiratory fitness and muscular endurance and/or strength. Question 14. One of the basic defenses against litigation in the event of injury is the concept of assumption of risk. Which of the following is unlikely to be an element of proving assumption of risk? A. The participant played a contributory role in his or her own injury. B. The participant voluntarily accepted the risk known to accompany the activity. C. The participant was informed of the risks associated with the activity. D. The participant was asked to sign a waiver or other document. Answer: A. The concept of assumption of risk does not ask who is responsible for the injury, it merely asks, did the participant understand that there were risks and then choose to participate? The concept of contributory negligence speaks to the idea of who is at fault. In contributory negligence, the defense argues that the participant somehow played a part, no matter how small, in bringing on the circumstances that lead to the injury. For example, a participant in a group indoor cycling class who tries to hurdle over a bike, and is injured in the process, might be held partially or fully responsible for his injuries. Question 15. One of the methods of mitigating risk in the health club setting is to implement the concept of informed consent. Which of the following is least likely to be an element of obtaining informed consent as described by the American Council on Exercise, ACE? A. Inform the participant of any alternatives, programs or tests that may be a better option. B. Inform the participant of any benefits he or she might realize from participation. C. Inform the participant that once the program has been initiated, it will not be possible to withdraw consent. D. Obtain the participant's consent in writing. Answer: C. Participants should be informed that they have the right to withdraw consent and discontinue participation at any point during the test or activity. Participants should be informed of the benefits, risks, purposes and withdrawal options for every procedure, test or activity. Additionally, this consent should be obtained in writing whenever possible. Question 16. An accident occurs on Latoya's watch during her 5:45 a.m. wake-up class. She dutifully fills out an accident report. Which of the following was not a proper entry in the accident report? A. A description of the type and nature of the injury. B. A brief, fact-filled description of the accident. C. A brief statement of actions taken at the scene. D. A brief explanation of why the accident took place. Answer: D. An accident report should be fact-filled. It is inappropriate to postulate or to state any opinions of why the accident took place, what the underlying cause was, or who was to blame. The report should report all demographics of anyone involved: instructor, participant and witnesses, the time, date and place of the accident, a brief description of the event, including any equipment use, any instructions given, and a factual accounting of any actions that took place after the event. If possible, the report should be signed by the injured person and the supervisor on duty. Question 17. Many factors influence an individual's motivation to begin an exercise program. Which is the least helpful motivation for individuals to initiate and sustain an exercise program? A. Health concerns. B. Peer pressure. C. Coercion. D. A desire to look better. Answer: C. People must find it within themselves to participate in an exercise program. They cannot be externally motivated by mockery or coercion. Motivation to initiate an exercise program can come from many sources, including health concerns, peer pressure, the desire to look better, a major future event, etc., but it must be internalized in order to be sustainable. Question 18. How can a group fitness instructor, GFI, best help class members to follow the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, guidelines for exercise? A. Break the guidelines into manageable parts and develop an achievable routine. B. Fully explain the HHS guidelines to participants before exercising. C. Give each participant a handout including the guidelines. D. Remind participants of the guidelines before each exercise session. Answer: A. Since the HHS guidelines for exercise can be intimidating to a beginning exerciser or someone who has difficulty complying with them, it is up to the GFI to break the guidelines into manageable parts and develop an achievable exercise routine. The instructor who blindly follows the guidelines, without deviation, prevents participants from getting an individualized program. Ultimately, this lack of personalization may prevent people from participating at all. Question 19. It is difficult for many people to adhere to an exercise program once they have begun. Which factor is least related to adherence with physical activity in a supervised exercise setting? A. Education. B. Income. C. Age. D. Gender. Answer: C. Interestingly, age is not a factor related to adherence with physical activity when that activity takes place in a supervised setting such as a health club. However, lower levels of physical activity are associated with fewer years of education, lower income and an X chromosome. Overall, men demonstrate higher compliance and adherence rates than women. Interestingly, one of the best predictors overall of whether a participant will adhere to an exercise program in the future is whether he or she adhered to one in the past. Activity history is the most reliable predictor in many settings. Question 20. Individuals start and stick with an exercise program for a multitude of reasons. Which attribute is not a positive predictor of exercise adherence and participation? A. Body weight. B. Past and current participation in physical activity. C. Self-motivation. D. Perception and knowledge of one's health. Answer: A. Individuals who are overweight, especially those with morbid obesity, are typically less active than those of normal weight and are less likely to adhere to an exercise program. Prior participation in physical activity is the most reliable predictor of participation in an exercise program. Individuals with positive attitudes and beliefs are also more likely to continue to exercise, as are those with strong social support, access to a nearby facility and the time to participate. Question 21. Which one of the following is not a major environmental factor contributing to exercise adherence? A. Time. B. Family or friend support. C. Access to facilities. D. Weather conditions. Answer: D. Time, social support, and access to facilities are the three primary environmental factors which influence whether or not an individual will start and stick to an exercise regime. A lack of time for exercise is the most common reason given for exercise non-adherence. Social support, especially from a spouse, is a reliable predictor of exercise adherence. If an individual has access to any kind of exercise facility, especially if it is a short distance away from home or work, he or she remains more likely to adhere to an exercise program. Question 22. As a group fitness instructor, GFI, your desire is for your clients to benefit from an exercise program. What should your primary goal be? A. For each participant to adhere maximally to an exercise program. B. For each participant to enjoy their exercise program and be engaged in it. C. For each participant to master the routine. D. For each participant to have an ideal body mass index, BMI. Answer: B. By maximizing participant enjoyment and engagement, exercise participants can develop intrinsic motivation to adhere to a fitness program. Since individuals have different levels of intrinsic motivation, the GFI can play a role in increasing intrinsic motivation to exercise by offering strong choreography, compelling music, energetic cueing and positive reinforcement. Question 23. Intrinsic motivation is a major factor in exercise adherence. How can your feedback as a group fitness instructor help foster intrinsic motivation in your class members? A. By encouraging participant involvement and self-sufficiency. B. By providing a role model for members to follow. C. By keeping in control of the exercise program. D. By ensuring that participants will continue to require your services. Answer: A. By encouraging participant involvement and self-sufficiency, each individual can gain ownership over his or her exercise programs. When participants have a sense of control over their personal exercise participation, they are more likely to develop intrinsic motivation and adhere to their programs. Question 24. Which is the least appropriate method for a group fitness instructor, GFI, to use in order to increase the self-efficacy levels of class members? A. Design the class in a way that each participant will be able to master. B. Be aware of the type and frequency of feedback each individual participant requires. C. Give each participant the same feedback to keep things consistent. D. Teach class participants how to read their bodies in terms of fatigue, soreness, and intensity of exercise. Answer: C. Feedback needs to be given in the appropriate form and the appropriate frequency for each individual participant. As participants receive manageable, individualized feedback, demonstrate progress in their exercise programs and learn how to read their body, their confidence will rise. One of the most underused opportunities for education is the closing moments of the class. The wise GFI will use this opportunity to re-emphasize the purpose of the class and to bring it to an inspirational ending. Question 25. Characteristics of a group fitness instructor, GFI, that help motivate participants to adhere to their exercise programs include professionalism, punctuality, dependability, dedication, and good communication skills. All of the following are examples of professional behavior except A. Dressing fashionably, but modestly. B. Treating all participants with respect. C. Giving participants nicknames based on their attributes. D. Avoiding gossip. Answer: C. Giving participants nicknames based on their physical, mental or social attributes can be construed as mean-spirited or disrespectful. Dressing appropriately, treating everyone with respect, and avoiding gossip are all ways to express professionalism on the job as a GFI.
Thank you to everyone for subscribing, rating, faving, and commenting my video and channel.